So you kind of want to make something. Oof. It's already started. We're in the midst of it right now. Exactly what I want to talk about. This video is, do you mind? I am trying to read. It's happening right now. This whole video is about what is happening right there and there. What are we talking about? We're going to talk about resistance. We're going to talk about creativity. We're going to talk about art. We're going to talk about so many things. The gauntlet has already begun. Thank goodness you're on. Oh, no. Be gentle. Gentle, G. Just sitting down to make this video, but I was going to shoot it in a different location this morning way earlier. And like immediately my gimbal died after the test photo. And then like this microphone was dying, and I was like, I swear I just charged these things. This is all resistance to creation. Making something. The minute you get an idea to drop some ideas down or start writing something, a poem, a journal entry, you get a notification on your phone from somebody, something, somewhere, someone, and you try to minimize all that, put your phone on silent, and then, you go put your pen to the page, and a giant truck goes by, rattles the windows, and takes all your attention. Any artist will tell you, but far beyond art, anybody who makes anything, because we all create stuff, we covered that in the last video, experiences resistance. We all experience resistance. Resistance comes in so many shapes and forms, internal and external. And the main place it comes from is fear. Fear is the heart of resistance, especially within. We want to make something that our creative mind has envisioned, and the thing that stops us the most is the fear that something will go wrong, that it won't be as good as we imagine it, that we won't be able to make it as good as we imagine it, and so we will postpone it until we have the skills, the resources, the time available to create the best thing that we can create. When the truth of the matter is right now, the thing that we have envisioned, I think, needs to be worked on and released at whatever version of it happens. And it can be remade, redone later when you're better. When I'm 50, I'd love to go back and remake this video. I could probably do it a lot better then. Something flashed in front of my mind this morning where I saw that episode of that when they were 50, I don't know if they're still 15-minute bits or 12-minute bits, but that short half episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob and Patrick are blowing bubbles, and they make all these incredible, beautiful, imaginary things. And Squidward comes out, and he's like, "Well, I can blow a bubble. Wow, how are you doing it? They have magic bubble blowing powers." And they're like, "Hey, no, man. You got to do this, and then this, and then that, and then this, and then that, and then this, and then that." And you go, what does that have to do with anything? I'm blowing a bubble. I need air to go, whoo, which doesn't make any sense. They're underwater. I don't know how you blow bubbles underwater without air. And he gets angry. We get frustration. He then he generates his frustration with it because he thinks he should be able to do the thing that they're doing competently without all of these seemingly unrelated steps. And he gets so angry that he eventually mocks that creative process, where he says, "I can't believe you believe that if I do this and that and this and this and bring it around town." And he just starts screaming into that bubble. And he makes this glorious, majestic bubble, expressing his anger with the creative process. And I think any artist of any nature or any creator can really understand that moment. There's so many great SpongeBob bits on creation. There's the classic essay example where he spends 12 hours and writes the. And then they make the Doodle Bob. Wow, someone was dealing with some writer's block, is what I think. Anyway, I just want to talk about, as in music specifically, as a musician, I've definitely held myself back from creating things because I don't want to work from where I am. I want to work towards the end goal. I want to create the thing in my head, and it's taken me. I spent some number of years becoming an artist, and then I felt like while still working on developing as an artist, I had to start developing on being creating in a new medium. And what we're doing now is creating in a new medium. So from going to be a songwriter and performing your songs, or a song performer, a recitateur, a person who recites music, performing music, and that's what I learned at first. It's like, here's how to do the thing, here's how to perform the stuff, and then I had to go on this big journey to learn how to create, the digital product, the digital information that is like a file that has the ideas of all of how I want the actual song and composition to be. So it's tons of extra layers. It's becoming a composer on top of a songwriter. You're arranging all these different parts and working with other people and directing other people to create with you, or not directing other people to create with you, just capturing their creativity in relationship to yours. Projecting in relationship to mine. Fear is the thing that stops us, and sometimes anger is the thing that gets us through these traditionally known negative emotions. And I really hope that no one, especially no very spiritual person, thinks that they are not allowed and should not feel their anger towards the universe, towards God. Um, Having our anger, our emotions, is a part of our relationship with spirit, our relationship with God. Being angry at your partner or your mom or your dad is a part of our processing, is the human process, the life process. Any angsty teen or moderately healthy adult can think of times they've been completely enraged by somebody else and their behavior or what they've done or their perception of them. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, it just means it happened. So we have to get over that fear of showing someone the thing that we've been making that is subpar what our expectation was or what the vision was, is a part of the process of being an artist, being a creator. And a lot of us, I got stuck there for a very long time. There was a lot of hesitation to be like, do I want to show anybody this thing? Do I want to publish this recording? Well, no, this song's too important. I don't want to put out a version of this song that's not very good. And I've put out very little, and I need to start putting out more. And I think if I can encourage anyone from being the guy who held on too long to not creating, to saying, I want to have the resources to be able to do it the way that I envision instead of doing what I can now. All success, especially in art and music, is built on people who do what they can now. I'm in Kentucky. I'm in Lexington right now, and the one of the few things I know about the rap artist Jack Harlow is that he started dumping shit on YouTube when he was like 13 years old. When we were kids, he's my age. And when I was not publishing on YouTube, he was. When I was not trying to record and create, he was. And I knew other people in my neighborhood, not my neighborhood, in my school that were doing their best to produce hip hop beats and rap over them and try and put those out. And, little did I know from this perspective now that they were doing the right thing, that I should have been dumping my songs out. Every little thing, every little half written bit needed to be shared. I would encourage everyone to do that. So what we're going to talk about is like deconstructing resistance, deconstructing our own fears. And it's hard to recognize when it feels like procrastination. There's a great book that you've probably heard about. If you haven't, I'm very glad to introduce it to you, called The War of Art. It's a play on Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And the war of the artist is a war against fear, against judgment, against imperfection, against hesitation, against resistance. It is personified as a dark entity that needs to be defeated. You need to have courage and steadfast resolve to push through that fear. Fear is part of the process in everything. This resistance is part of the process. This is your grand enemy to defeat, is the thing that's saying, that's not good enough. And the better you get at saying that's good enough, the better you get at accepting what happens, I think the better your art becomes and the more acceptable to others your art becomes, and accessible to others your art becomes. Fear is the mind killer and it's the art killer. And the art is killer. Think about all of the hurt people who tried to process their difficult to understand emotions through art, and we lost later to or substance abuse from people running trying to find refuge from fear. Fear is the great destroyer, and it's awful. I hate to say it. And it's so funny because when you're there, when you're in it, because I've been there, guys. I don't have the tattoo yet, but we're going to get a semicolon right on my neck eventually. It's from an unconscious place of fear where you've built this life hiding from these things that you're thinking you're keeping yourself safe from, when really you're destroying your chance at a happy life through fear. And it takes so much work and gentle guidance to just even see the fear for what it is. And start small. If you're not a very creative person, if you're not an artist or don't identify as being an artist but have artistic friends, never hesitate to ask them what they've been working on if you're interested in their work. Never hesitate to reach out and say, hey, can I see what you've been doing? Can I hear what you've been doing? Did you write anything new recently? What you've been working on, what you've been thinking about. This is just if you're kind of a people person and want to engage with them. Always give them an opportunity to share. A lot of people can't place themselves on the same pedestal that we place our other artists in life. I made a Facebook post recently. Facebook, right? I can't see me the way you see me, and you can't see you the way that I see you. Right now, you're my camera phone in a stand, but that's not you. You're a unique individual, a person entirely your own, and so incredibly valuable. And any one of you watching could be any artist that I place on a pedestal. And thank you for what you've created and what you're facing, that fear, and putting those things out repeatedly. I imagine if I've gotten around to you, I'm very mainstream, I think. But if you're an artist in this era, or maybe someone else's materials will come out later, but I encourage you to listen and read or take notes on if you're that disciplined. The War of Art, I do not know who that one's by. And even though some and many artists disagree with it, The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin, Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. Even some of the people who say they disagree with it, I would say, are still behaving in the way described by Rick in that book. And where that freedom comes from is surmounting that fear of judgment. And he spends a lot of time kind of coming back around to how much it is gaining confidence in oneself and one's creativity and inspiring others to be confidently them, and communication. Communication is so important in humanity. If you want to be anybody, learn and practice the art of communication. The better we get at it, the more defined we get at it, the way that we deliver it. And by communication, I mean there are rules about communication that transcend language, and it's just really important. And that's something I've spent a lot of time on. But there's literally classes at universities that teach communications, and it's more than like telecom. Truly person to person. The whole world's built on people. The whole thing. No matter where it is, what it's done, there was always people doing it. Our whole society. Every good deed, every destructive one, every act of war, every act of peace. People. Excuse of people. I don't think a turkey has ever started a war. Could have been. Could have happened. I've not heard of the Great Turkey War. And it's probably a miscommunication. Probably a misunderstanding. Most conflicts are. So when your fear is present and slowing you down, the first thing I would advise anyone to do is recognize it. When you're like, oh, I want to create something, or I feel like I should create something, or I knew that I wanted to take this time today to create something, you experience that equipment failure, you experience that distraction, you experience that internal conflict of like, well, I could just stay in bed, well, I could go get something to eat, well, I could go make a coffee. You're allowed to make a coffee. Sit with it. Recognize, say, oh, hey, this moment, I am aware, is resistance poking its head at me, saying, this is the thing, saying, I do not want to change the way that reality is right now. It could just leave it the same. It's going to happen anyway. Why do I want to push against it? The day will go by, whether or not you do anything from the beginning to the end of it. It will never be perfect. So detached from perfectionism. I wish it was more complicated. I wish it was overcoming that fear. I wish it was more complicated than just being aware of it. Being say, oh, this is the fear. You can rationalize and look for evidence that you're a good artist. And sometimes it'll be there and sometimes it won't. You know, I might step into stand-up comedy and bomb. So, well, of course I will. I'll be a terrible stand-up comic if I decide to get into it. That's a part of the process. We all have to suck at something. It's the first step of getting really good at something. Thank you, Jake. And even if you have an aptitude for it, it will still be subpar work. There were things that were missed, things you don't know about. You don't know what you don't know. So everything has a learning curve. And the more willing you are to fail, the greater success you will have as an artist or a creator of any kind. The more willing you are to look stupid, sound bad. Take my channel, for example. This is probably the first good sounding video that I've done where I'm talking besides the one where I had the microphone. I did film a very long one trying to explain my entire life story. That was pretty cool. And it just wasn't coherent enough for me to make sense of. And that's okay. Getting roasted here. Sun's high in the sky. So whoever sees this, spend some time facing your resistance. This week, today if you can. Say, hey, I want to make that thing. I want to change something about my outside reality or my inside reality. Just face your resistance. See that false fatigue. See that barrier as surmountable. That's one of the most important things you could do for yourself and for the world at large. Because we all have something to create. It's going to affect somebody. Some amount of people will see this and say, well, this was interesting. And those are the people I've affected. It's that simple. Be honest with yourself and treat yourself the way that you would be treated by others. And specifically, sometimes people treat others better than they treat themselves. And the person you treat the best in this life needs to be you. Period. I can go into the Bible if you like, but love your neighbor as you love yourself. There's an implied self love there. And most of us don't understand how to love ourselves. I say most of us. Feels like most of us, but a lot of us don't understand how to love ourselves. A lot of us don't get taught the process of loving ourselves. And love can be very sacrificial. You know, I want to stay in bed, but the person I love would like breakfast. And I am that person. I would love to keep not doing anything, and the person I love would like to have a healthy body. So I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to go for a 15-minute walk. We sacrifice comfort often to express the verb of love. Love ain't a thing, despite what you've heard. I got lost. I haven't heard that song in a long time. It's John Mayer. Katy Perry's on that one. That's when they were dating. Then she's like married to the most John Mayer looking other celebrity, which is hilarious to me. And I never put the two together until like I saw a picture of. Anyway, celebrity talk. They don't want to. They're both very unique men. I will say that. What were we talking about?